Hi folks, it's Scott here from SurfacePro Finishes and thanks for your company. Well, today's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, the rain has finally gone and we're knocking on the door of summer. And we've got today prepared for you a very interesting board, sample board that we're doing. Quite a large sample board that we're doing today. And what we're going to be doing is a white marble base with grey fractures running through it. And it's going to be a fairly simple marble effect, but we think it's going to be very nice. And of course, marble is so popular today, still very popular today in kitchens, well, particularly around Australia and I'm sure also around the world. So we're going to get started. I've already made up the epoxy with it's our iceberg pearlescent paste. And that's been mixed already into our epoxy, and that's going to go down as our base. And then I've got for our veins here, we've also got our it's our pearlescent paste in the grey, or silver I should say, it's silver paste, and also a little bit of spray paint in it as well, just to make it a little bit more opaque for our lighting. So we're going to get that out onto the board also, but I'm just putting that off to the side. So this board here is a little bit over a square metre. So that's about 12 square feet. And I've prepared it by priming it, 2 coats of primer, and the MDF has been rounded over with a 5mm rounding over bit, both the top and the bottom, just to allow the epoxy to run around. So we're going to get this on now, I think, and get this happening. I think I'm going to leave a little bit in the bottom for later, just a small amount. I'm going to put that off to the side because I can use that later. And now I've got my 4mm trowel. It's probably a little bit small for this job, but it's okay. I can move it around, shift it around fairly quickly and get some very good coverage quickly. I'd probably be inclined for this size and larger to use a larger size trowel. But as I said, it's a 4mm notch trowel. There we go. So I'm going to bring it right to the edges, not deliberately push it over the side yet. I probably could have, even with this board, fogged the edges in a white, and that could have been done also. But the white epoxy here, it's fairly opaque, so we're fairly confident that you won't see the edges. So SurfacePro Countertop Epoxy has been designed to be quite a thick epoxy, so that it doesn't automatically want to run off your countertop or off your bench top or off your bathroom vanity or coffee table, whatever you're doing. And that's very important, because there are a lot of epoxies on the market which are very runny, and they simply don't work. They simply aren't appropriate for this type of job, and ours is. So that's good. Okay. So now I'm just going to use my protected hand just to give it a rub backwards and forwards, just to take out the lines that trowel tends to leave, and they're like a shadow line, and just give it a give it a rub and break the surface tension over the edge as well. Just backwards and forwards here and taking out those lines. Now you could use a brush and you can chop it in if you want to. And that obviously does exactly the same thing as what I'm doing now. You run the brush along the edges here to break the surface tension and make sure you get good coverage over the edge and down the sides and slightly underneath as well. Now, we mix our epoxy at a ratio of 1:1. So it's a 1:1 mixing ratio, and we pour it out as a coverage of 1 litre per square metre. So that's 1 litre per square metre. This is slightly over a square metre. So we've made just slightly over a litre. Now for my American friends, that's at a rate of 3 ounces per square foot. Okay, I'm very happy with that. I should have a look at the other side to make sure. That's really very good, okay. So what we're going to do now is we want to allow this to set up a little bit. So we're going to leave it for probably around about 15 minutes-ish, just to see how it sets up. I really wanted to start to set up a little bit before we start to apply our veins, these grey veins, to make the effects that we want to make. And we need to do that because it's still very movable, I guess. It's quite viscous, and we want to set that up a little bit. So we'll be back in about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes time. So we're about 15, 20 minutes later, and the board has started to set up a little bit, so we're happy with it, and it's spread out nicely. And so what we're going to do now is I've pre-made up, as I said, our grey. Well, it's actually a bit of grey spray paint and our silver pearlescent paste, just to give it, as I said, a little bit more, I'll make it a little bit more opaque. And what we're going to do is, I've got our tray. I'm actually going to pour it into this tray and then use a stir stick to draw it out and run it across the board to get really, really good effect. So I'm just pouring it in now. I'll just save a little bit there. So it's in my tray here. It's still quite viscous there. I was hoping for it to be a little bit more set up, but it's not. That's okay. That's okay. I can deal with that. Okay, so what we're going to do is just going to put a little bit on our stir stick, and I'm going to run it along. Yeah, it's not quite, this is not quite set up enough. I'm not really particularly happy with it. So we might leave it for might come back in another 5 to 8 minutes, I think, and then it should be a little bit better. Okay folks, we're about 8 minutes later. We're gonna give it another shot. So this has set up a little bit more, and I've got plenty here, and we're just gonna run it over like so. Just pick a little bit up on the stir stick, and like this, and then just try to make these patterns. Yeah, that's good. Now that's doing what I want it to do. I can get a really broad coverage, and there we go, that's it. That's beautiful. And that just made a beautiful effect. It sort of spreads out nice and wide, about 6 to 8 inches wide, and then it makes these cells, and it just looks fantastic. I want to leave a lot of white on this board, so I'm going to start again from here and again create that effect. So I just pick up a whole load of it and then just touching the board and dragging it, and it just grabs and pulls and creates this webbing effect. And I'm just going to just do that there. Very nice, very nice. That piece there, I'm going to just to help that along a little bit. That's better. Yeah. Yeah, this is really starting to set up nicely. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, I'm going to leave that. And actually, I might just leave that there. And I'm just going to get something to wipe my hands. Now, there's a number of things I could do right now. I could use isopropyl alcohol and spray it over the top. Now, I haven't torched it yet. I haven't used the heat gun on it yet. It's had nothing on it at all. It's just been sitting there. So, funnily enough, there's very few bubbles at all, but there are bubbles and cells being created in the grey. And I know as soon as I get the torch out and I torch it, it will create even more cells. Bubbles will pop and it'll create this beautiful effect with the cell. So I'm gonna do that now. So I'll get the torch. See, the bubbles are popping now as I'm going along. Oh, bit of smoke there. And we'll get more and more cells being created. Okay, so that's still moving and melding and sort of molding itself into a more of a natural look. We've got a ways to go yet though, and I've already prepared a little bit of black epoxy here. And we used a little bit of black spray paint, we used a little bit of metallic powder in the black. And I'm just going to do some light veins going across the middle. Actually, I'm thinking I might do a little bit of the same effect in the middle with the black. And I think that will look very, very nice. Just to give it a little bit more interest. So again, I'm just charging up this stir stick. This is a smaller version, obviously. And there we go. And yeah, that is really amazing what that does. Oh yeah. That is very pretty. I love the color. The two different colors are against the white, and it's a brilliant white background. It's very, very nice. I love it. I'm leaving the edges to stay white, to show how much white there is in the marble. It's really just almost close down the center, where just adding the color, and you can imagine on a large countertop how that would look. It'll look absolutely stunning. I'm really liking that, the more it goes. I'm really thinking a little bit at the front here, where I am, just to add some interest here. This is a very, very good effect. I really encourage you just to wait a while, take your time, don't rush things. We've taken, well, look, it's now at the 50-minute mark since we mixed our epoxy, and we're still using it. So SurfacePro Countertop Epoxy has a very long working life, and you'll find that you can play around with it and not hurry. And if you hurry, sometimes you won't achieve the effects that you could have achieved had you just waited a little bit. I don't like that, and I'm just going to fix that. Use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol in the clear. Now this is 99% isopropyl alcohol, which you find here in Australia, and just make sure I'm happy with that. And I'm just going to give it a fine mist over the entire board. Isopropyl alcohol will help to pop any bubbles. Not that that's really what I'm after, because most of the bubbles have already been dealt with the torch, but really has an effect to hopefully open up and move the colors a little bit. Just going to wait for a second, let that evaporate a little bit before I bring the heat gun onto it. And in fact, I could probably bring the heat gun onto it straight away, unlike the torch, where you could have problems with catching fire. So just getting the heat gun up to temperature. So I'm trying to move it. It has started to set up, as I said. So it's not moving particularly easily. I can get some movement out of it. That's the trade-off, I guess, that you're going to find if and when you wait until your epoxy starts to set up and thickens up, that it's a little bit harder to move it on the board with something like a heat gun, which I'm doing now. Look, now I can move it, It's not particularly runny, which is good. And I just want to move it a little bit, just to try to get a little bit more of a natural look about it. Although I've got to say, I'm very happy with the way it looks anyhow. It looks, to me, it looks very natural. And of course, that's what we're always trying to achieve, is that natural look, natural stone, so that you can replicate marble, and you can replicate marble or granite using, you know, SurfacePro Countertop Epoxy for a fraction of the cost that it would cost you to have a stonemason come into your home, measure up. He has to go, he has to buy the marble, he has to cut out the sink holes, your cooktop holes, then come in, pull out your kitchen, well certainly your countertop and your bench top, and then hopefully the marble fits when he brings it to your house. And then, you know, $8,000 to $10,000 later, you have brand new marble. And absolutely you have brand new marble. This here looks like real marble. And you can do it on your existing kitchen countertop at home. You don't need to pull your kitchen apart. You don't need to get a stonemason, and more importantly, you save the big bucks. And that is what is very, very appealing about what we do, to be able to help people achieve a really, really lovely kitchen at a fraction of the cost that it would cost you to go and buy real marble or real granite. So, yeah. Okay, I have a little bit of the grey left in my tray here, and it's really set up, but it's very, very interesting consistency here. We're going to give it a try and draw some over our board here. Now it is coming out fairly thickly, and I need to be very careful that I don't drop a blob on my countertop. Oh, that's interesting, that is. There we go. Okay, look at that. It's like treacle. It's like honey, isn't it? I don't know what you want to call it. But I think I'm going to give it another go. I've got to be very careful with it. And I want to just go along here, like that. And I'm done. And I'm done. And I'm not going to do any more. And I'm going to take my gloves off. Get rid of those. And I'm going to get the heat gun. No, I'm not going to get the heat gun. I'm going to get my torch. I'm going to get the torch and I'm going to give it a torch. One more time. That's very impressive. The effects that we have on that last pass of epoxy, the grey, and what it's doing, the cells that it's creating, it's very, very set up. But hitting it with a torch is just sort of melting it a little bit and moving it and popping any of those bubbles and creating a real beautiful marble effect. That is absolutely stunning. This has really turned out to be a real showpiece, I think, this particular piece here. Oh, that is really special. I'm really loving that. That's got webbing. It's got webbing both in the original light grey that we used, which was silver, our silver pearlescent paste, and it had a little bit of spray paint in it, grey spray paint, and we mixed it together. So that was our original colour laid down. That's got beautiful webbing through it. And I will have the camera come closer so you get a closer view. And then we went over with the dark grey, and that had set up also. And that also, not to the same extent, there is some cells that have been created, but there's more solid areas which look fantastic. And then we went over, lastly again, with a lighter grey again, with the silver paste and spray paint, and that's gone over very set up, very thick as you saw, but there are still cells that have been created. Okay folks, so we're finished. This has really exceeded our expectations from when it began, and we're very, very happy with it. And I'm sure you'll agree that it's a very, very simple way to replicate marble. We just used a white base, as I said, and really just two grey colours. And we waited until the epoxy had set up a little bit and drew it across the board. And you can do that on your kitchen countertop or your bathroom vanity, or even a coffee table if you want to start out that way. Now, SurfacePro Countertop Epoxy is very fast drying, and it's going to be drying, well, it's going to be touch dry, I should say. It's going to be touch dry in 5 hours time, thereabouts. And then it's going to be perfect for me to apply our flood coat. So I'll be doing that in 5 hours time, and on will go the flood coat, and then we'll let that sit for another 5 hours, and then we're back with the XFACTOR. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying XFACTOR scratch resistant top coat in our matte finish. It's our natural matte finish, and I want you to see that. So stick around in the video, you'll see exactly how that looks. It is beautiful, it's an absolute beautiful surface to apply to a marble finish, because it gives you an absolute natural finish. So thanks for watching, and stick with us. So I'm going to be laying down the flood coat now, and I've poured the correct amount of epoxy into my container here, and I'm going to give it a stir with my drill and our stirrer, which is this type of propeller type mixer that we really like, because it really doesn't draw in a whole lot of air, and it doesn't throw the epoxy around too much, but it mixes it very, very well. So I'm just going to put my glasses on and start mixing. So I'll mix it for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to stir it with a stick, with my stir stick, around the edges thoroughly, and the base as well, to drag off any unmixed product, and then stir it again with the drill for another minute so it's thoroughly mixed, and then it'll be going out on our flood coat. Oh, by the way, I also have a timer. I keep a little electronic timer, which obviously I'm putting on right now just to keep track of the time. Okay, I think that's thoroughly mixed. I'm just going to help a little bit of this excess off the the drill here, like that. Now, our countertop epoxy is a 1-to-1 ratio, mix ratio, and by volume, and we have a coverage rate of 1 litre per square metre. That's 1 litre per square metre. Now, this sample board here, it's a large sample board, but it's a little bit over a square metre, so this is just a little bit over 1 litre. It's about 1100 mils. Okay, just gonna sit that there for the moment. I'm gonna move my clock there. Now I have my 4mm notch trowel, which I'm going to be using to spread out the epoxy. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly get this straight out onto the board. Now I am scraping the sides. You do need to make sure that your epoxy is mixed, because you don't want to have any sticky spots. If it's not thoroughly mixed, you'll be mixing in unmixed epoxy, and that will leave sticky spots on your surface, and you don't want that. You don't want that, I'm going to show you. So, very hard to get rid of. Very hard to deal with sticky spots. It's not drying, that's what it's doing. It's just simply not drying. It's not setting up and curing. Okay. Okay. Now our sample board here, we used midnight black powder in epoxy, and we also used a silver paste. A silver paste as well. Separately, we poured it out, and the sort of effects that we used, or we created, we allowed the epoxy in the cups to set up, and again we used our stopwatch to really watch the time. So we didn't instantly pour it out. If you instantly pour it out, you'll get certain effects with veins and so on, but they tend to move a little bit. We wanted to wait some time until the epoxy started to set up, so it became a little bit thicker, and then we drew it out of the container with a stir stick, and we spread it out over the board here, and you'll see by the pictures I'm going to show you how it looks. It's like putting your stick into honey. It's like putting it into a honey pot and drawing out the honey. It's that sort of consistency, and I guess it's like a honey pot effect. And that's what it's like. You draw it into a honey pot and you bring it out, and as you draw it across the board, it spreads across your stir stick, catches, drags, creates beautiful effects, and then keeps on skipping over your sample board and making these wonderful effects. The lacing in here is just amazing, which you will see, and it's all to do with this honey pot effect. Using a honey pot technique, I guess, and it's fantastic. We're going to use it more and more. We think it's fantastic, and it's all about the timing. I'm going to start to spread this out now, and it's all about the timing. You need to watch the clock. You don't pour out, you don't create your veins instantly. You need to wait. How long do you wait? Well, look, you could leave your epoxy in your cup for about, I don't know, probably around about half an hour, 25 minutes, see how it is, test it. If it needs to go a little bit longer, that's okay, just leave it a little bit longer, but you do only have, the longer you leave it, the shorter the working time that you have to be able to create the effects that you want to create. So you have to keep that in mind. It's all about timing, and we watched the clock, and it was around about 35 minutes, I think, that we actually waited. There wasn't a lot of product. There wasn't a lot of color, a lot of epoxy in those cups. Therefore, it really didn't go off extremely fast. The more you have in your container, the faster it will go off. It heats up faster, therefore goes off faster. So you need to watch the clock. As long as you're prepared to do that, keep an eye on it, then draw it out across the board as we showed you how we did it when we did this sample board. You'll have just fantastic results and fantastic effects on your coffee tables, on your vanity top, on your kitchen countertop, on your kitchen bench top, if you want to call it that, on your tabletop, okay, anything like that. You'll achieve a beautiful effect. It's just one, obviously one effect, one technique, the HoneyPot technique. It's one technique that you can use to create beautiful effects. Beautiful natural looking marble. That's what we're trying to achieve. So look, SurfaceProEpoxy, SurfacePro Countertop Epoxy, as you can see, it's quite thick. I'm bringing it to the edges. I'm going to use my gloved hand to work it over the sides in a moment, but it doesn't particularly want to naturally roll off the edge, and that is the characteristic of SurfacePro Countertop Epoxy is its viscosity is such that it doesn't run off your sample board. That's very important. It's very important. That is very nice. I'm loving this board. I love this sample board. It's a large sample board. I probably wouldn't take this around to a customer. It's probably a little bit too big for a customer to see. It's pretty heavy. So I would tend to use the smaller ones, some of these smaller ones which are 600 millimeters by 400 millimeters. For me, they're a really good size. They're reasonable size. You can still get a lot of effects, really show what someone's countertop is going to look like, someone's coffee table, someone's bathroom vanity is going to look like. Not too small, but about so big. They're a perfect size for me to show my customers. This one here, it's too big, but I like doing these large boards. I really enjoy doing these large ones. I do it because I like to do it, and you know, you can really show up over a large area what it's going to look like. It's almost like it's a nice coffee table size. You can imagine that in your lounge room with a nice set of legs underneath. Beautiful. So I'm just giving this a rub backwards and forwards, and the reason we do this is because there are shadow lines that are created from your 4mm trowel. They make these lines, I don't know why though. Well, I guess it's because the epoxy is dragged through the little openings of the trowel, and they create these shadow lines. And you know, you want to get them out. I have seen epoxy dry, and I have seen a shadow line left in there. So is it important to really make sure that you take them out? Yes, it really is. Now, I'm using my hand here. Some of you like to use a paintbrush. I use the paintbrush too. I have used the paintbrush, that's perfectly fine. And that will, by chopping in the epoxy, it will take out those lines as well. I actually quite like using my hand. Actually, it's quite therapeutic, really, doing this. That is coming along very nicely. You know, I am taking my time. I might be taking a little bit of time, but that's okay. So you will also want to take a little bit of time to make sure that you address the edges, and making sure that you do break the surface tension around the edges like I'm doing, and making sure that your edges are looked after, because There's a saying that edges are everything, and in the epoxy world, that is so true. You have to make sure that your edges are looked after. If you miss a spot, and it doesn't wrap over the edge correctly, you will notice it. And so just take your time. You've got plenty of working time with the epoxy. It's self-leveling. Look, this is crystal clear. It's self-leveling. It's rock hard. It's zero VOCs. It's user-friendly. You don't have to fight with it. You don't have to wrestle with it at all. It just does what it's supposed to do, and that's what we love about this epoxy. It's specially made, or specifically made for kitchen countertops and bench tops, and I'm putting a little bit more there. I just want to make sure that I get a good coverage there. That's it. Specifically made for kitchen countertops and bench tops, bar areas and so on, coffee tables. There we go. Okay, I think I'm just about done with that. And I'm going to give it a quick torch. And after I give it a quick torch, I'm going to leave it for 5 hours, because that's all it takes for this epoxy to be touch dry. And in 5 hours time, we'll be back and to roll over our XFACTOR scratch resistant top coat, but I'm doing it today. I'm going to be doing it in the natural matte finish. And I want to show you our natural matte finish. This color that we laid down, the gray and the silver, we didn't put any sparkles, we didn't put any glitter, we didn't put any shimmers or anything like that, because I knew that I was going to be putting down the matte, and the natural matte finish does take that away. But it does also make it look just like stone, just like natural marble, and I'm going to do that natural matte finish for you, and you can see, I'll give you the comparison between the gloss of the epoxy, and then you'll see the difference with the finish of the XFACTOR Natural Matte Finish, and you'll see the difference. And you can judge for yourself what you like. We have 3 levels of gloss. We have 3 levels of XFACTOR, I should say. 3 levels. We have, as I said, the natural matte finish. We have the high gloss finish. If you really want the high reflectivity of, just like your finished epoxy finish, if you want that, well then you want to go with the gloss finish in the XFACTOR. But we also have, uniquely, we also have our satin finish. Now our satin finish is really, truly unique and amazing, because what it does is it still gives you that natural finish, and everybody really wants, if you're doing marble, I think most people want to have a real natural look about their marble countertop. That's why you're doing it, I guess. And you want a natural look, but you want to make sure that the veins of glitter, of shimmers, or any highlights that you have introduced into your epoxy, into the colors that are now shining through, you want those to come through to a large extent. You don't want to lose it all. And you will lose it all with any of the natural matte finishes. It's gone, it stays under. But our satin finish is unique, that it will allow those to come through, and yet it also has a very natural matte look about it. And that's your other alternative if you want to go with that. I'm not doing that with this. We're doing our natural matte finish to show you exactly how it looks. So thanks for watching. Stick with me, and I'm going to be back in about 1.5 seconds. Our board is dry. It's been a little over 5 hours, and I have already prepared my XFACTOR in the matte finish. Again, as I said previously, this is mixed at a ratio of 10 to 1. So it's 10 parts of the X Factor and 1 part of the hardener. And you do not need to add any water at all to this. It's perfectly the way it is, no matter where you live. And I'm just going to pour this into our tray. So the board here is just over a square metre. So you apply it at a rate of 100 mils per square metre. I've made up a little bit more because your roller soaks up a little bit of product. So I've added a little bit more into it for your initial roll. I've prepared 2 separate rollers. One roller for applying the product to the sample board or to your countertop, and the second roller is for the dry roll to drag it across, lightly drag it across or roll it across to pick up any excess product. So I'm just going to charge this up now. I'm using a 4mm nap roller. I don't use sponge. Sponge rollers do not work particularly well. Yes, they don't let off any lint, they don't let hair out or fibres out. And you have to be very mindful of that when you use a nap roller. So you need to de-lint the roller to make sure that there's no hairs or fibres that come off the roller. But do not use a sponge roller. Use a 4mm nap roller, and you can use the actual size. I use a 160mm roller. You may want to use a bit smaller, you may want to use a bit larger, that's okay. So simply straight onto the board. I'm cross-hatching to make sure I get a good coverage across the entire surface. There we go. Now I will do the edges. Make sure you do the edges. Now I'm going to be very careful to do the edges. I can't see this side, so I'm being particularly careful to make sure that I have the right angle. So I'm covering it particularly well. That's very good. And I'm just about finished. So that's the wet roll. That's the product on. I've got quite a bit left over too. Now my dry roller. Okay, I tend to work from the right to the left. I keep the bar on this side. I keep more pressure on this side as I draw it back, like so. And that's going to pick up all the excess product. And once it's done, this will be our natural matte finish. There won't be any lap lines. There won't be any orange peel. It'll be a beautiful, silky, smooth finish. quite an easy and quite a quick process, as you can see. It hasn't taken me long at all to get this done. So it really is a one-man job or a one-woman job. Roll the edges. That is it. Job done. You can walk away, roll it once with a dry roller. You're finished. Do not be tempted to do it again. So I rolled the ball once only, and that's it. Just once, and then the job is done. Don't be tempted to go over and over again. Do it once, and then you'll walk away. So we're very happy with it. So thank you very much for watching. You can catch us at any time at surfacepro.com.au for all these products and much more. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.